Hey guys, I'm Nate. Welcome back to the workshop. Today we're going to be building our very own gumball machine using easily available parts and materials. Here's what we'll be using to build our gumball machine. First, we have an angled plastic candy jar. We have a piece of foam core board that a lot of the internal workings will be built out of. A plastic bottle with straight sidewalls. Plastic bowl that came in a pack of 4 for just a couple of bucks. Some small diameter wooden dowels. Of course, a bunch of gumballs. A hot glue gun, a circle compass, an X-Acto knife, and we're going to be using a drill even though it's not strictly necessary. To start off, let's take our foam core board and start cutting out a few shapes. The first thing we'll build is the mechanism that catches the gumball inside the container and drops them down into the dispenser. Here's the basic idea of how this mechanism will work. Dowel will go through a hole in our foam core board. That will spin around and we'll have a small cup that can catch our gumball inside the container. And the whole device will be a circle. The gumball will fall out of the machine down into the circle with the notch cut out, and then as we twist it, it will get dropped out of the bottom into the dispensing device. Now this is an extremely rough drawing of how this device is going to work, but it does work as something of a measurement tool. We can see that the gumball will fit in a slot that size. We want to be sure that it's the same distance on all sides of our axle. So we can take a rough measurement of this circle that I've drawn, and we come up with about 2 1/4 inches. So that is the size of circle that we will make our mechanism. Since we want our final circle to be 2 1/4 inches in diameter, we need to set our radius at 1 1/8 inches wide. To make sure that our mechanism is wide enough to hold the gumball well, we need to cut out 4 of these circles. We can see that with 4 pieces of our foam core, it's wider than the gumball, so we should be able to completely contain the gumball inside the mechanism. By cutting the notch out of one circle and then tracing it onto another, we can be relatively certain that we'll get the same size and shape every time. Here we go, our gumball fitting nicely inside the notch cutout in our mechanism. Now let's glue these 4 pieces together, drill a hole down through the center, and we'll use that to attach the axle, which will be made from our wooden dowel. As a test fitting, let's fit the dowel through the hole that we just carved. See how this is looking. That's exactly what we were hoping for right there. Mechanism will catch the gumball, rotate, and drop it down into the dispenser. Now you may have noticed that there's an issue with this mechanism. If we put it like this, it will catch the gumball, and then the gumball will just drop right out. And that's not the goal. So let's build a box that fits around this mechanism so that there are sidewalls keeping the gumball from falling out until we want it to. We want our box to contain the rotating mechanism, but we want it to be very close to the edges. So let's cut out a square that's got the same diameter as our circle, 2 1/4 inches. Here we go, 2 squares that fit just about perfectly around our interior mechanism. Now we just need to add a couple of holes so that our axle can run through the sides of the box as well. We can see now how the sides of our box are going to contain the gumball so it doesn't fall out until we're ready for it to. Now at this point, when I turn it, it'll just fall out on the side here because we haven't added the sides to our box yet. Now our mechanism isn't perfectly round, and largely that's because when you cut something out using the X-Acto knife, it's hard to follow the lines just the way you want. Sometimes the knife will be at an angle, sometimes you'll miss your mark a little bit. To make sure that our wheel isn't going to start rubbing on the sides of the box, I'm looking at a little bit of a high point here, so I'm going to try and take that down with some sandpaper just to make sure everything will turn easily once it's all put together. All right, I think that did a pretty good job. None of the ridges are standing up as higher than the others at this point. so I suspect that'll help it rotate even more smoothly inside our box. At this point, we want to start building our box around this mechanism. So let's give ourselves a little bit of extra dowel on either side, clip it off, and then glue the mechanism in place so that it's firmly affixed to the dowel. By applying the glue to the dowel and then pushing our little mechanism over the glue, hopefully we've smeared glue on the inside in between the dowel and the mechanism so that it will be nice and firmly attached. We're doing that because, as I said, we're going to want the mechanism inside to rotate, but we don't want the box itself to rotate. With the mechanism firmly attached to our dowel axle and the sides of the box freely spinning, it's now time to add the other sides to our box. We can measure how wide we want those to be just by putting it down on top of our foam core, drawing where we want to cut it. With our side pieces cut out, now let's attach them to the other sides of our box. There we go. Now with the sides of our box attached, our gumball doesn't fall out until it gets to the bottom. And we're actually going to take the bottom of our box and add a little bit of a lip on either side so that the gumball doesn't fall out until it's right down in the middle of the bottom. Now, before we attach these two pieces, which will direct the gumball to fall out into the middle, we're also going to add a small piece in either corner to make sure that the gumball doesn't try and get stuck in this little spot when it's upside down. Now that we have those two pieces in place, let's attach these two to direct the gumball to only fall out the very center of the bottom of our mechanism. We've got our mechanism assembled now. Let's test it out by dropping in a gumball and seeing if we can get it to drop out the bottom. Here we go. Perfect! With our mechanism built, we now want to attach it to the bottom of our angled container. The first step will be drilling or cutting a hole in the center of our container, large enough to fit over the opening of the mechanism, but small enough that we're not going to have gumballs just pouring out everywhere. Woo! That was exciting. Didn't think about the bit getting quite that much grip on the container, but it did. We can now see that if we set our mechanism right beneath that hole, it should feed the gumballs pretty well down into it. To help make sure that the gumballs really get funneled in, let's cut down the edges of the sides of the box on the inside just a little bit so that they have a sort of downward slope into the candy catching portion. To make sure we don't get too many, let's raise up the bottom of our mechanism so it's a little bit closer to the top. That way the gumball will sit at the very edge and then the second gumball won't be able to fit in. Let's try that. The bottom of our candy bowl has just a slight concavity to it, so we want to make our mechanism fit flush up against that. So to make it work, what we want to do is take down the edges just a little bit at an angle so that they fit nicely with the shape of our bowl. Looks like only one at a time fall down into the mechanism now. That's just what we want to see. Even if there's others on top of it, they just get pushed out of the way. Perfect. Our mechanism is now working nicely with the hole we have in the bottom of our bowl, so let's glue it in place so it's permanently attached. We now have a bowl and we have our dispenser mechanism, so we need to attach them to the tower in the base that will be part of the gumball machine. To start, let's cut the top off of this water bottle as flat and levelly as we can. To help as a guide, I'm going to wrap some tape around it, and if the tape lays perfectly straight, then we should be able to get a nice clean cut. There we go, that tape is pretty straight. The fact that it met up almost exactly where it started means that it's lying pretty much in a straight circle around the bottle. It may not be 100% perfect, but fortunately, it doesn't have to be. Now we can see that the whole mechanism can fit nicely into the bottle, but of course, the wooden dowel sticking out in the front and the back is impeding it from fitting inside. So what we want to do is trim off the dowel in the back, and then we'll drill a hole into the front of the bottle, and we'll be able to fit that through the hole and have it sit down inside the bottle entirely. When our candy container is resting on the bottle, we can see the height that we're going to need a hole for our turning mechanism to leave the bottle. Let's mark that with a pen and then drill out a hole. We're only going to want the mechanism that we turn on the front to be about 1/4 of an inch away from the bottle, so we can trim down this dowel a fair bit as well. I used some heavy wire cutters to clip the dowel in the back, but I want the dowel to be a little bit smoother in the front, so I'm going to try cutting through it with a hacksaw. There we go, with our dowel shortened a little bit, hopefully we can now fit the whole mechanism down inside our bottle. There we go. We add a few gumballs. Should be able to just drop one down. Hey, there it's going. But as you can see, we're just dropping gumballs down inside of a sealed container. So what we need to build is a small ramp that we can connect to the mechanism inside out to the front of the bottle. I think this will be too long, but let's start out by cutting a piece about 4 inches long. Let's make our ramp wide enough that the gumball can easily fit even after we've added some walls that will keep it from rolling off of the side. That should give us a long enough ramp for our gumball to roll right out. We also need to have enough space that the gumball can fit out the bottom of the mechanism, so we can't have it flat up against it, of course. And even if we angle it, there's not really enough room for it to get out. We need to angle it and add a little bit of a spacer. So let's add some space onto the back of our ramp. One thing to keep in mind is that we are going to want this ramp at a bit of an angle. So if we cut the bottom of our spacer, it should sit at an angle on our ramp. You can see that I've cut an angle. So now when I glue it onto the back of our ramp, it won't sit straight up and down at a 90-degree angle. It will sit a bit like that. Now it is going to attach to this back portion of our mechanism, so to just give it a little bit better of a grip, let's fill in the gap in between these two pieces. Now our ramp will have something nice and solid to attach to. Of course, we will need a hole cut into our bottle for the gumballs to get out through. We can line our ramp up with our mechanism and see approximately what height we need to cut that hole. This will be the bottom of the hole, and then we need to have enough space for our ramp to pass through and for a gumball to easily fit through. To get a good height for the side walls of our ramp, we can line our ramp along one piece of foam core and then trace out the shape that it makes. Now we have a piece that fits in nicely but is too tall and would get in the way of the mechanism, so we need to cut off the sidewall at the same height as this backing piece. That's one wall of our ramp. Now let's do the same thing on the other side. Now let's use our glue to attach the two sidewalls onto our ramp. There we go, a ramp with walls so the gumball can't fall out and land in the bottom of our container. I think that is looking pretty dang good. This is more ramp than a gumball delivery system really needs, so let's trim this off. With our gumball delivery system, we also want to make sure that it's easy for us to grab the gumball out. So at the end of our ramp, let's lower the wall height a little bit so it's easier to grab. And now, because we don't necessarily want our gumball just shooting out onto the floor or our desk, let's add a front piece onto this to stop it from rolling when we don't want it to. At this point, our ramp is complete and we just need to attach it to our dispensing mechanism. Now this might be one of the most delicate pieces of this entire build. We need to attach the glue onto the ramp and then fit it in through the hole and press it up against the bottom of the mechanism. And at this point, we can also start making our other connections permanent. We can use the glue to attach the bottle to our candy container and run some glue along the outside of the front of the ramp to hold everything rigidly in place. At this point, all of the moving parts of our gumball machine should be functional, so let's pour in some gumballs and give it a test. If I wanted to make sure it didn't bounce out, it would be super easy to just add a slightly higher wall, but it doesn't bother me. Now that everything is working, at this point there are only two things left to do. One is to cut a hole in the bottom of this bowl so we can fit our bottle down inside it, and the other is to add something that makes it a little bit easier to turn our mechanism. I have a roll of tape that is almost the exact same diameter as our bottle, so I'm going to use that to trace out a circle onto our bowl and then cut that out. Nice. There we go, our bottle fits nicely inside of our bowl, so let's just use some glue to attach that and make it permanent. We're going to try and use one of these King of Random logos as our turning mechanism. So I've peeled the sticker off and I'm just going to attach this onto our foam core and I'll cut that out. That will work. Now let's see if we can get the sticker to peel off for just a minute so I can drill a hole into the foam core. Apply our sticker. There we go. All right, now that the glue has set all of the way, we should be able to twist the internal mechanism by twisting the logo. Let's fill her up with gumballs and she'll be ready to go. Needs more gumballs. Gumball. It's a pretty fun little build, and you can probably even get it to work with things other than gumballs. I haven't tried, but there may be other small candies which would fit in here nicely as well. I think I bought everything at this build from Walmart, and I don't think I spent more than like 12 bucks. The only thing I didn't get from Walmart was the gumballs themselves, and I got those from my local grocery store where they're sold in bulk. Thanks for joining us for this video, and don't forget to come gear yourself up with hats, shirts, and other cool merch at thekingofrandom.com. See you there. A foam core board that will be... Stop. When you really, really need a gumball.